Hi everyone, I'm Georgina, this is Nadia, and today we're going to be talking to you about the parotid gland. And we'll just briefly give you an overview of the histology, location, development, structures that pass through it, neurovascular systems involved, and lymphatics. And then Nadia will talk to you about pathology associated with the parotid gland. And unfortunately, we struggled to get some of the images for the anatomy slides from clinically orientated anatomy moors and from Grays. So we've decided to give you concise notes, and then you can look at the textbooks in your own time to help you with your revision. So with the histology, as you can see, the parotid gland is made up out of acini and ducts. The serous acini are where they contain the zymogen granules, which are actually responsible for the watery secretions that the parotid gland produces. The serous acini drain into the intercalated ducts, which are different from the striated ducts because they are cuboidal, as you can see, and then the striated ducts are simple columnar. And the location of the parotid gland, we decided to focus mainly on the borders. The medial border is the superior pharyngeal constrictor muscle. The posterior medial border is the masculine process of the temporal bone. The anterior medial border is the mandibular vein masseter and the medial pterygoid muscles. And the lateral border is deep to the skin and superficial fascia. And the borders are clinically relevant because sympathetic innervation results in vasoconstriction, and that inhibits secretion by the parotid gland. The development, with regards to the development of the parotid gland, the epithelial buds, which are the origins of these glands, are located in the inner part of the cheek near the corners of the mouth, and they grow posteriorly towards the otic placodes of the ear and branch to form solid cords with the near the developing facial nerve. And secretion begins at 18 weeks in the fetus. There are three structures that pass through it: the facial nerve, which splits into 5 branches within the parotid gland, the external carotid artery, and the retromandibular vein. The external carotid artery is also responsible for supplying the parotid gland, and the retromandibular vein is responsible for drainage, but the facial nerve does not supply the parotid gland at all, just passes through it. So the arterial supply is the posterior auricular and superficial temporal branches, which branch off within the parotid gland of the external carotid artery. The retromandibular vein drains the parotid gland, and as it descends through the parotid gland, it splits into 2 divisions, the anterior and the posterior division. The anterior division eventually joins the anterior facial vein to drain into the internal jugular vein, and the posterior branch eventually joins the external jugular vein. Parasympathetic innervation results in an increase in saliva. The parasympathetic presynaptic fibers hitchhike along the glossopharyngeal nerve to the otic ganglion, and then the auriculotemporal nerve carries the postsynaptic parasympathetic fibers from the otic ganglion to the parotid gland. In the sympathetic innervation, the superior cervical ganglion, the fibers travel from the superior cervical ganglion travel along the external carotid artery and to reach the parotid gland. And the sensory innervation is by the auriculotemporal nerve, which is a branch of the mandibular nerve, which is the third branch, which is the third branch of the trigeminal nerve. Lymphatic drainage, the gland is mainly drained into the preauricular or parotid lymph nodes, which ultimately drain to the deep cervical chain, as you can see here. Okay.
I hope you don't mind me sitting down, because I think I might pass out if I don't. Sorry. So I'm just going through the pathology bit of the parotid gland. So I'm going only through parotitis and neoplasia, just because there's more literature on that. So parotitis, it can be caused by a lot of things, but I'm only going to focus on infection, autoimmune and idiopathic cause parotitis. So as you can see, infection can be caused by viral or bacterial infection. So the most common viral infection is mumps, and the most common bacterial is Staph aureus. Autoimmune, again, there's a lot of syndrome causing parotitis, but I'm only going to focus on the Sjogren's syndrome. Yeah, I think so. I think that's it. And idiopathic can be due to obstruction and sarcoidosis. Obstruction can be due to stenosis or stone within the parotid duct. So the signs and symptoms, since parotitis is an inflammation, so the 4 or 5 cardinal signs of inflammation, that is swelling, redness, heat, pain, and loss of function, all of them relates to the signs and symptoms of parotitis. So you would expect patients to have swelling, colicky pain, especially during mealtime, foul taste if there's pus, and dry mouth, because of, especially an autoimmune condition, because they attack the salivary gland, really. And I put the evidence of recurrent swelling and other connective tissue disease, such as systemic lupus erythematosus and rheumatoid arthritis, because that indicates that the patient also has other systemic autoimmune disease, really. So you can do a bunch of examination, general examination, swelling to see if it's generalized or if it's localized. That would indicate a tumor. You would palpate for the parotid duct. You could do it on the patient, you can do it on yourself. You can clench your teeth and feel for the masseter muscle, and if you go anterior to it, you can feel the duct, and that is where you would expect to feel any stones, really. And you can see if there's pus. So ask the patient to open their mouth and put pressure on the parotid gland. You can see white stuff coming out from the inside of their cheeks. So that is probably infection. And you can do facial nerve examination, but that's more pronounced in neoplasia. Investigation, again, this is quite familiar to us since we've done most of it in the infection module, but one thing is new to me and hopefully to everyone else is xylograph is basically a radiographic imaging technique that looks into the parotid duct. So this is an example of a xylograph. See, there is obstruction there. And treatments, it relates much to the cause of parotitis. So if it's an infection, then you would give an antibiotic. Mumps are low. You don't have a lot of mumps now because of MMR vaccine, so that's one way to prevent it. If there's pus, so you drain it, and if it's really bad, then you excise. Autoimmune, you give a parasympathetic drug to increase saliva production. And obstruction, yeah, same principle. Gland massage to help the stone pass, really. Now going on to tumors. So there's neoplastic, non-neoplastic tumor. Just out of interest, 80% of all salivary gland neoplasms happen in the parotid gland, and 80% of that is benign. So yeah. So these are the example of benign neoplasm, pleomorphic adenoma, Wilson's tumor, and malignant is so and so. I don't know to what extent we should know the details, as in the pathophysiology or histology of the tumor. So I'm only going to go through the signs and symptoms and how we treat them clinically. So the signs and symptoms, they are a slow-growing, painless mass. So if someone comes up to you with a huge lump on their face, complaining of no pain at all, then you would think, oh, that's bad. You won't get cranial nerve palsy, it's facial nerve palsy, because it only affects the motor branch of the facial nerve. Now, the pain can occur, but it only occurs due to hemorrhage or infiltration to surrounding tissue, and that's on the extreme end of the condition, really. That's when you know it's really bad. Examination, you will palpate for the deep lobe of the parotid tumors, and if there is a tumor, you would then assess for the clinical features that would suggest of its malignancy, so its hardness, whether it's fixed or whether it's mobile, its tenderness, and so and so. And you examine for facial nerve. Again, it's more pronounced. You would get facial nerve palsy if in neoplasm as opposed to parotitis. Not that it's impossible, but it's more evident in tumors. Investigation, imaging techniques, aspirate for cytology, again, MRI, CT scan. Yep. Couple of groups, I've mentioned this before, but this is basically a summary of the facial nerve and its branches, the muscle it innervates, and the action that it produces. So you would test for all these actions to see if your patient are able to do them. So if there's a weakness or asymmetry, then highly suggestive of malignancy. Treatments, local ablation, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, polychemotherapy, which is basically chemotherapy with several different drugs. Surgical intervention by superficial parodectomy. I put superficial because 80% of the time it's only benign, so superficial is enough. But if it's malignant or if it's highly infiltrative, you would have to be more radical in terms of the surgical intervention, whereby the facial nerve itself has to be sacrificed. You have to take out the facial nerve as well. But yeah, that's an added point there. Benign neoplasms of the submandibular gland require complete excision because they don't have facial nerve running through them, so you can just take all of them out. This is a cool picture of facial nerve wedged between the parotid gland. Yeah. So should be careful when you do surgery in the parotid gland because that's there. Okay, that's it.